Welcome to you both. Ambassador Herbst, let me begin with you. Correct me if I am wrong here, but it feels, at least subtly, as though maybe the U.S. and the West were caught a little flat-footed by the tactical moves that Putin made in the last 24 hours, namely recognizing these two breakaway republics and then moving troops into those areas as, quote, peacekeepers. Were we prepared for just that kind of move, or were we looking for something different?
I'm sorry to say that it seems that you're right. Now, point of fact, this move was eminently predictable. There were many people, myself included, who said this would be perhaps the least aggressive form of aggression that Putin might choose in order to avoid major response from the West. But he chose it. And I'm certain that the administration understood this was one thing that Putin might do. But keep in mind that the administration has stressed that it's been establishing a response in partnership with the EU and with our NATO allies. And we always were concerned that maybe some of our EU partners were unwilling to put down major sanctions in case of this specific provocation. And that may be what we're seeing right now. But the administration knows that the sanctions they announced yesterday afternoon were pitifully weak. That's why they've been talking for the last, well, actually since late yesterday, that there'd be stronger sanctions to come. So I think we'll see something now that's more robust.
That is certainly the talk now. Chris Miller, let me ask you about how strong Russia is. Clearly, when the Soviet Union fell apart in the early 90s, we took advantage of the Soviet Union or of the disparate parts to express Western influence in the former parts of the Warsaw Pact nations. Is Russia strong enough to pull off now what they seem to be wanting to pull off, both economically and militarily?
Well, I don't know if it's really right to say the U.S. took advantage of Russian weakness. In reality, people
there was a power vacuum. That's what I'm really referring to.
Well, that's right. People like in Ukraine and elsewhere in Central and Eastern Europe wanted to be free of Russian domination. And that's really what's at stake here. Are they able to assert that right for independence, or is Russia able to force them back into Moscow's sphere of control? And that's what Russia's trying to do. Putin's speech yesterday was notable for it being an attack on the idea of an independent Ukraine. That was his primary focus, not what Ukraine's doing, but the fact that Ukraine exists. And so what we're seeing right now is an attempt by Russia to strong arm Ukraine back into the Russian sphere using economic threats, military threats, political threats. And my worry is that if you listen to Putin's speech yesterday and read what he said, he's not done yet. It's not about the Donbass. It's about all of Ukraine.
It's about so continue that thought, Professor, if you wouldn't mind. If by chance he, after some fighting, does absorb all of Ukraine, will he be done then?
Well, I think it's difficult to predict where the world will be if, in fact, we get another step of escalation by Russia against Ukraine. The reality is this will be the biggest war Europe's seen, if it does break out, since 1945, since the end of World War II. And I don't think we've even begun to think through just how consequential and disastrous such a step would be. I sincerely hope that Putin doesn't take this step, but all of the signs from yesterday weren't of someone ready to back down. They were of a Russian president getting ready to push forward, thinking he's at the peak of his power and thinking that the West isn't.
Cell phones.
That was just, you probably heard a little sound in there from the East Room of the White House. They were asking people to silence their cell phones. We typically get, gentlemen, a 2-minute warning, and we're awaiting that before the president arrives. But Kelly, continue.
Ambassador Herbst, about an hour ago, the Associated Press had a story about Russian lawmakers authorizing President Putin to use military force outside the country. Unclear, at this point, if that's what sent stocks to the session lows that we're now seeing. But, how significant a step would that be?
Well, it's worth recalling that that's what the Russian lawmakers did before the Russians went into Georgia. And I think they may have done it in 2014 in connection with Ukraine. It doesn't mean that Putin is going to do more than he's already done with the introduction of forces into territories he already controls in eastern Ukraine. But it does allow him to do that. And it's a disturbing sign, for sure.
And if you,
I'd like to add.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
please. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I think in Putin's speech yesterday, in the draft treaties that Russia sent to both the United States and NATO in December, And in previous statements made by Russian officials, Putin's ambitious revisionist aims are very clear. They go well beyond Ukraine. They include all the states of the former Soviet Union, and it seems now even the former Warsaw Pact states. He believes he has a right to have substantial influence, if not full control, in all of these countries. And that is a direct threat to major, or actually vital American interests, because it includes NATO members.